Welcome to this podcast. This is all about using secondary sources when researching a context within a school. So this podcast is going to outline what secondary sources is, use some examples from a school context, just to give you a little bit of an idea if it comes up as a method in context question. So this podcast is explaining the secondary sources. So what are they? They are data already in existence, either collected by a government agency or an individual, or in this case a school or education setting, which a sociologist may use. So typically it may be used if access to the institutions may be problematic. So, for example, denied access by the gatekeeper or the head teacher. So let's turn our attention to statistics in education. So the statistics are very useful as the government has collated statistics on a wide range of issues relating to school, such as exam results. These could be by class, gender, ethnicity. And you can also see the achievement rate and whether it's increased or decreased and see trends and patterns. You could see absence and attendance, again, by ethnicity and gender, which shows that they are all representative. Free school meals, subject choice, and even truancy. So, of course, having these statistics are really useful as they cannot actually inform government policies. So, for example, following GCSEs and girls and achievement and the disparity between boys and girls' achievement, there was policies such as Gist and Wise, which was aiming to raise girls' achievement. Likewise, when you start to see the statistics of boys and achievement, it can inform policies such as Playing for Success, Dads and Sons campaign, and things like that, which are raising boys' achievement as well. Another one would be free school meals. So educational achievement and the underachievement of the working class led the new Labour government to introduce the EMA, as there is a correlation of class and achievement onto early level. You can evaluate that by saying that subsequent governments did cancel or stopped or change the policy regarding EMA, so they can take it away as well as introduce it. But it's also important to note that governments can also change the definitions of the things that they use. So, for example, when league tables were originally introduced in the Education Reform Act in 1988, it was based on exam results. However, when Labour, they put it into context and they added it into this thing called contextual value added to take into account that some students start school in a deficit or a deprived compared to others, so it starts to see the distance travelled. Now, what the problem here is that you cannot compare league tables from when they were introduced in 1988 to the later ones from 1997 onwards. It's hard to make comparisons because of the change in definitions. But statistics are really useful for schools. GCSE results are an important way of marketing themselves. For example, they might use statistics on their websites, 100% pass rate at GCSE, for example. But then this brings in further issues about using the statistics by the schools. As often during marketisation, schools might manipulate these statistics. For example, one school, the pass rate might be A to C, another might use A to E. So it's knowing what they're using in order to judge the usefulness of these statistics. It could be used for further marketing purposes, so showing statistics of girls sitting GCSE science. It might be appealing to some middle class parents and they might choose to send their child to that school because of these statistics. On the other hand, other school statistics might make the school look bad. So, for example, high levels of unauthorised absences or truancy or low GCSE results. And these often appear on league tables, and these parents are using these to make an informed choice about what school to send their children to. So this leads to the impact of statistics on parents then. So leading back to marketisation, statistics might be used by parents when choosing a school. However, this is problematic because not all parents will know what they mean, especially if they've had a poor level of education themselves, They might have poor literacy. They might not be able to access websites where these statistics are held, whereas middle class parents see the importance of students' pass rates and the statistics compared to the working class. They tend to not use the statistics because they tend to rely on word of mouth, and you can refer to Gerwitz's study of the privileged skilled choosers compared to the disconnected local choosers. So statistics can be collected by the government. And a further point that you need to consider is that they might not be what the researchers wants to see. So, for example, the government might not collect statistics on social class explicitly, even though as a sociologist we are interested in it. The only statistics that do indicate class is free school meals. You can argue that some statistics are hard and soft. So GCSE tend to be collected by most students, so they tend to be a hard statistic. But something like the free school meals, going back to that, might be a soft statistic because some students might be embarrassed to get it. So it might not be the best indicator of class. Some working class kids, I know when I went to school that if you were on free school meals, you had to go to the office, get a little ticket, sign for this ticket, then go to get your meal. You know, it's really embarrassing. It's a very, very visual indicator that you're poor, and some students would rather go without. Also, it's a really poor indicator of class as well, because some middle class might be entitled and some working class might not. So there is a bit of an overlap regarding free school meals. So I've just summarised some of the main statistics that you might find in schools and some of the issues that you might encounter when doing that research. Another valuable secondary resource is documents. Now, these are a massive range of documents that can be collected in education, gaining valuable qualitative data about the insight of what these schools are like. Examples include marketisation material. They can be digital documents, website material, or even physical school prospectuses, course handbooks, those type of documents. There could be documents regarding the curriculum, so it could be things to do with school reading schemes, for example. It could be to do with textbooks. It could be documents from the government, like specification from exam boards. There could be things to do with racist incidents, sexist incidents, bullying, minutes of meetings, letters sent home, and there could be documents that are unofficial. So, for example, if the opportunity arises, I know one sociologist collected notes passed around in class between students. It could be other things like school books. I remember when I was doing A-level PE, and to get an insight to what it was like at a public school, my teacher recommended that I read Tom Brown's School Days. So I got an insight to what it was like being in a school. So school books and novels could be quite valuable as well. Now, exploring some of these documents may pose some issues. So some official documents about the school, such as marketisation documents, website prospectuses, often linked to Ofsted. Often schools higher up the league tables will have more money, so they spend more on these documents, they spend more on marketing themselves. So it might not be reflective of all schools. And poorer schools might not be able to afford these documents. On the issues of marketisation and researching how parents might use these documents, there are important differences between the types of parents. So middle class parents might know where to find them. They might attend open evenings, for example, and be receiving these documents. They might know where the electronic documents are on the website. So you should be able to tease out some analysis of using these documents there. Other things about schools as well could be official registers. So collecting registers, they may have errors in the data collection, reflecting the reliability of them. But the nice thing is by using documents such as registers, you can get trends about attendance. You might collect documents about teachers. So the problem here is that some of these documents about teachers, such as access to teachers' records or disciplinary records, they are confidential. The head teacher might deny you access to those. After all, it might impact their career. They might fear losing their jobs. And also, if they are part of research, it might add a little bit of stress to their lives. You know, teachers are in their place of work and they do have a degree of protection regarding being researched. There might be documents against students as well. So, for example, I mentioned Lobben's research about notes passed around in, was it Lobben? It might not be Lobben. Research about notes passed around in class or reports or any additional learning support. You will need consent on those. You might, be able to put it on the internet and say wanted old school reports, and you might get people sending them in. But again, you've got people who are going to self-edit. So if you've got a really good report, they might send that in to you. Whereas people who have really poor reports or really personal, nasty reports written to them by their teachers, they might not want them published by researchers. So you do need consent. Now, regarding this, one sociologist collected the notes left at the end of a class, which neglected the consent. The content of the note, it might give you some guilty knowledge. What does the researcher do with it if it's got something to do with, say, sexist or racist language in there? And if they're not necessarily collected in a systematic way, they might be unrepresentative. Documents regarding parents, so documents such as prospectuses. Documents such as prospectuses, online or paper, do require a certain level of literacy that not all parents possess. Working class, uneducated, and even some ethnic minorities may not understand the content of these documents, and therefore investigating the use of these documents by parents, there's going to be some bias within that. You could investigate being at a school, so it could be personal diaries from teachers, pupils, ex-pupils, current pupils, even online blogs. For example, The Secret Teacher, you might use that. He's or she, I don't know who it is, but they do blog about issues regarding schools from a teacher perspective. They tend to be quite unique to that person. You could argue that they're high in validity, but they could be edited in order to person to look good. There might be elements of social desirability there as well, and often that some of these documents might be in a private collection, so whether you will get access to them might be quite difficult as well. So overall, this podcast has just outlined statistics and documents. There is many of them around a school that might be useful for you. It'll just give you a little bit of an idea if you get asked a question on methods in context. At least then you'll have something that you can hook to. And by all means, always make sure you're referring to teachers, pupils, parents, students, and they could be past students as well as current in your research. Okay, so thank you for listening. If you've got any questions, please make sure you pop them in the comments below. Make sure you click like, and thank you once again for listening.